after you're in the Virginia, aren't you, Tom? Best I remember.
Yeah, that's right. We're in Warrenton, Virginia. Right.
Yeah, so it's afternoon there.
Yeah, by 8 minutes.
Yeah, by 8 minutes. So I was going to say good morning, but it is in the central time zone where we are, but where you are, it's afternoon. Tell us the American Policy Center, for those who don't know the purpose of your existence.
Well, the purpose is to fight for the ideals of limited government, free enterprise, individual liberty, and the one issue that we focus on more than anything else is protection of private property rights. And so we are working with lots of people around the country who are victims of government land grabs in the name of protecting the environment and other various excuses like that.
What give us an example of that.
Well, we have right here in our county a lady named Martha Bonetta, and she is an organic farmer. She bought her farm, wanted to, she's got rescued animals on it. She does organic farming. She has a little shop on it. And the county has decided, for some reason or another, that they really don't want her there. They want to shut this farm down, and I cannot tell you the reasons why. We've got all kinds of theories, but it doesn't make any sense. But they threatened her with fines. She had a birthday party in her little store for 10-year-old girls, posted a picture of it on Facebook, and they used that as evidence. She didn't have a proper permit to do that. In the county, we have a lot of wineries, and they're forcing the wineries to close at 6 o'clock at night. They're banning them from having weddings at the wineries. These kinds of things. They keep comparing it all to, if we don't control all this, they'll all become Walmarts. These are little country stores and so forth. What it is control. It's control of the land. You had out in the West, the whole issue over the spotted owl, protecting the spotted owl, which literally shut down a lot of the timber industry and even closed down whole towns. And we're finding out that is a completely bogus issue. And but on and on and on like that, we find these things happening.
Why? How is it that when the average American hears about what you've just described? Really, I think the Democrat, Republican, whatever. I think the average American goes, that just doesn't make any sense. That's unreasonable. It's unfair. And can we not make accommodations for the spotted owl without disrupting thousands of people's lives in a region of the country?
Well, what we find is a lot of times that their excuses aren't real. They're made up. For example, with the spotted owl, their argument was that a spotted owl could only live in old-growth forest. In other words, a forest that has not had any timber work done. Timber industry hasn't been there and cut any trees down. And so they couldn't cut any more trees down because that's the habitat for the spotted owl, and that the spotted owl was endangered. Well, there are two facts here that don't compute with what they're saying. First of all, they find spotted owls living in McDonald's signs and under bridges. That has nothing to do with old-growth forest. Second of all, spotted owl is a derivative of the Mexican spotted owl, which are in plenty. I jokingly said the only way you can tell the difference between the two is the accent.
Right.
There's no difference in them, and but they create these things. In fact, one environmentalist said if it weren't for the spotted owl, we'd have had to invent them. Well, they did invent them, basically, because their goal was to shut down the timber industry, and they've been very successful at that. One other example going on right now in Ohio, there is a lady there who has a home. It's a historic home. I met her when I spoke there last week, and they are building a bike path, they're widening the road and forcing a bike path through there within 7 feet of her front door. And she can do they're not compensating her for the land, and they just said there's nothing you can do about it, and that's what's happening to it.
Talking to Tom DeWeese from the American Policy Center. You can find out more about their organization at americanpolicy.org, americanpolicy.org. So basically, one of your main issues is property rights of individuals, correct?
Exactly, yes.
And you're saying that government There are many examples of government overreach. How do you advise people though? Do you have to get an attorney that specializes in something like this, or, I mean, how do you deal with what do you advise?
Well, there are very few attorneys available for this that really understand it. A traditional attorney who's been trained in the traditional way doesn't understand a lot of the new policies that are being implemented. And that's what happened to this lady in Ohio. They had an attorney and they tried to deal with it the way you normally would. Well, you're infringing on this, and they've just been rolled over. What we're doing now, first of all, the excuse for most of this, we've got new regional plans, we've got comprehensive development plans that are being put in place in every community, dictated by a lot of times by the state, that the community has to do this, and this is all to enforce a policy they call sustainable development, that we're going to control growth and stop sprawl, that we're going to cut back our carbon footprint, that we're going to cut back on water use, use of natural or fuels and that sort of thing. And so those are the excuses that they use. And what happens when they start to implement those things is that you on your property, for example, in Oakland, California, they put these plans in place that said, you had to cut back on your energy use in your home. And to comply, you might have to put a new roof on your home. You might have to put new, windows, new appliances in there. The average homeowner, it was going to cost them like $35,000 to bring their home into compliance. And so this is what's happening across the country. How we're fighting against it, we're beginning to teach people, first of all, you cannot put sustainable development policies in place without damaging private property rights. It can't be done because the way they do it is a top-down control where they come in and say, this is what we're going to do. It doesn't matter what you say. But yet, if you go before your city councilman or your county commissioners and you say to them, what guarantees do I have you'll protect my property rights as you bring these plans into the community? And they'll stand up and say, oh, of course we will. Of course we will. Hey, I'm a property owner too. Well, now we've designed a new document called Resolution for the Protection of Citizens' Property Rights. And we have people, and we're training people now to go into the city council and ask that very question. As you're bringing these plans and these planners into our community, what guarantees do I have that you protect my property rights? And they respond, as I just said. So you just smile and you look at them and say, I'm happy to hear you say that, but gentlemen, I'd like to have it in writing, please. And from that moment on, you have flipped the issue. You haven't brought up like UN Agenda 21 and international policies. You haven't even attacked planning. You've asked them the one question that everybody and every property owner in that county wants the answer to. And if they refuse to sign the document, and they will, then you've laid the basis down for protests, to make a big issue out of it, even to run candidates to run them out of office. That's the way we're responding.
Tom, Ray Pritchard here. I want to ask you a question about the emerging surveillance society that we seem to be living in. I was looking on your website, and I noticed a couple of years ago you wrote a terrific article called Government Gone Mad in a Total Surveillance Society. And this was written by you before the revelations about the IRS and before the stories that have come out about the NSA and how much government snooping is going on. Are you more concerned today about this? And I suppose the question is, if the government is this intrusive if we're living in a surveillance state or moving in that direction, what in the world are ordinary citizens supposed to do to fight back against government power?
Very good question. Yeah, this is the other major issue that we work on and we focus on is personal privacy, and I've been working on that for a number of years. And yes, I'm much more concerned about it now than I was when I wrote that article. But we were sending out the warnings then. The whole excuse that we need all this to protect us from the terrorists, and when I hear people say, "Hey, I'd rather be safe," I have people write me letters saying, I'd rather give up my liberties and be safe. And, Ben Franklin said, you can't have both. And you gotta, you either have liberty or you have some kind of false safety. And once these guys control, see, one of the things that that comes out with all this is you might have good people in government with good intentions when they put these things together just to protect us. But once that system is in place, who knows who gets in control and how they use it? And we're witnessing now how that's being done. And, we have just recently put out warnings about the government's attempts to have drones flying over America. The EPA wants a fleet of drones to fly over property so they can check it out to make sure you're not doing something against their regulations. This kind of massive surveillance just leads to tyranny. And when I hear people say, if I'd rather be safe than this, what they're saying is that the government always gets it right, and that the Bill of Rights was written to protect the guilty. That's what they're really saying here. And I don't believe either one. And how do we advise people? How do we fight back? It's gotten to the point, I don't know how we stop this. It is all pervasive, and the only way is for people to start to stand up and argue, against it. But it's all pervasive.
Talking to Tom DeWeese from the American Policy Center. Tom, give us your website and tell us what's there.
It's AmericanPolicy.org, and there's an archive there of articles we've written over the last many years on various issues, on the property rights issues we were just talking about, on the privacy issues, on immigration, various other issues. And we've got an action alert system we call Sledgehammer, and I named it that because I found a long time ago that elected officials understood one of two things: money in their pocket or a sledgehammer between the eyes, and I wasn't going to give them any money. So
yeah.
we put out the action alert. It's free. It's by email, and we tell you what's happening and how you can respond, who you can focus on, make calls or letters, whatever.
Ray mentioned the National Security Agency. Is that what NSA stands for?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and were they the ones? That was the Justice Department who was spying on the AP reporters, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Okay,
yes.
I think it was them, and then the IRS is. The IRS has, of course, been proven to be targeting conservative groups. That's not necessarily in the same. It's as spying on people, but it's if they know who you are and they're they're penalizing you. That is the federal government because of your ideology. You have that going on. Isn't it ironic? And then you had the whole thing about the Verizon phone subscribers that was the NSA right there, wasn't that?
I believe so.
Yeah. So, and of course we know that other phone company customers were monitored as well, but by the federal government. But isn't it ironic that when President Bush was in, that, the political left in this country, which prides themselves on being civil libertarians and, don't want the right-wing intrusion into personal lives, and yet here we have the most liberal president we've ever had, and he's the one with all these scandals about violating privacy rights and spying on his agencies spying on people. How do you? Isn't that humorously ironic? Don't you think? And I'm not laughing because the whole issue is funny. I'm saying just the fact that that's the case.
It's funny, strange. Yeah.
Yes.
The hypocrisy is beyond belief. And we fought the Bush administration over the Patriot Act.
I remember that. Yes.
Putting all these things in place. Yeah, and we kept arguing because conservatives or Republicans were saying, well, we got to, it's for protection against terrorism, and we've got to do that. And we kept saying, well, maybe President Bush is a good guy, and maybe he would use it that way. But what happens if somebody else gets their hands on it and builds it? Well, here it is, and it's exactly what we warned about. The NSA is building a massive operation compound out in Utah right now. That's going to be even more powerful than what they've got now. And where does it end? And they always use the excuse: if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about.
But you're saying that that's not the point. The point is, it's the principle. It's the American principle, the constitutional principle, you would say, of the right to privacy is what you're saying. It's not. It's not whether the person who has something to hide or not. Is that what you're?
Yeah. Well, the rules change. What was legal 10 years ago may be illegal today, and in 10 years from now or 5 years, we may have massive regulations that, to move in any direction, get in your car and go somewhere, you've got to report it, this kind of thing. So what is legal and what's illegal is all relative to what you're dealing with at the moment. But when you're talking about constitutional law, you're talking about liberty, that's black and white.
Yeah. What do you say? I mean, I know what you say because you've already answered it, but really, I got to tell you, and I think you and I are equally probably conservative, and there's a libertarian streak in me too. But when somebody says to me, that they need this to protect us from a 9/11 type attack, for instance, that gets my attention, and that starts pulling on me. I start saying, well, I don't want that to happen again, so maybe this kind of technology and this kind of snooping is necessary to prevent that.